Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is road trip time. We are going on a monster road trip from Iowa to Minnesota, across South Dakota, through Montana, Idaho, over to Washington, up into Canada, Vancouver, back over to Banff, and making a big circle back down through North Dakota, back into Minnesota, and then back home. I'm figuring about 4,500 miles, and today is a big road trip day. We're making a long journey, about 700 miles from my hometown in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, all the way up to western South Dakota in the Badlands. So I'm actually talking to you right now from our first stop in Albert Lea, Minnesota, because we had to get on the road because we had a lot of driving ahead of us. Charged up to 100%. This car is chocked full of stuff. We have everything that we need. We're going to be doing some camping on this trip, and this is going to be our home on wheels for the next approximate 2.5 weeks. But since we're at our first stop, let me give you an update. It was 184 miles on this first leg. Really great efficiency, 269 watt hours per mile. That is unheard of in this car that has averaged about 300 since I had it almost 45,000 miles. So looking good. We're plugged in. It is a full supercharger. It actually wanted to reroute us a little bit at one point, but it ended up bringing us back here because there's really no choice. But we're gonna see how long it takes for us to get down the road. It's estimating 25 minutes, probably because it's full V2. We'll check back in later. All right, we're all charged up at Albert Lea. Charged up a little longer than we needed to go. It's because we had to get some lunch and use the restroom. We're at 72%. This charge is $13.80. So we're gonna go ahead and get unplugged and we'll check in at the next stop. Second stop of the day, Worthington, Minnesota, 120 miles from Albert Lea. Efficiency was a little bit worse, but not bad. We were driving a lot faster. Quite a bit to do around here as far as if you want places to eat or places to shop for groceries. We're right next to a Hy-Vee grocery store. I see a McDonald's, there's a Subway, and it's in the parking lot of a local restaurant. So plenty of options. The only thing that this is not technically, I think, a V2 charger. Maximum charge rate on these guys here and through most of this part of western Minnesota and South Dakota is maximum 120 kilowatts. So it's a little bit slower, but it's not horrible. Total time here is going to be about 10-15 minutes. Gives us a chance to just stretch our legs, and we'll be down the road here in just a sec. Okay, we are all charged up, 78%, says we'll get there with 19%. Just wanted a little extra buffer. I'm not used to this road or the wind or what we're gonna encounter, but we're there. Total cost for this charge, $16.88 approximately. So let's get unplugged and let's get down the road. Just got to our third stop in Mitchell, South Dakota. And when you're in Mitchell, South Dakota, you have to stop at the world's only Corn Palace. Yeah, that's right, because you just got to do it. This leg, 130 miles, 285 watt hours per mile. Arrived here at 23%. So far, the nav has been actually generous. In when we get to our destination, we're actually getting there at a slightly higher percentage than when we left. It said we were going to get there. But it's also pretty good given that we were doing 85 miles an hour in South Dakota for a good chunk of this trip, with the speed limit being 80. So we're going to go ahead and get plugged in. We're going to get some dinner and see how long we're going to need to stay here before we go to Murdo, South Dakota, which is our next stop. It says we got to be here about 20 minutes. So this is sort of a V2. It's 120 kilowatt max, but we'll get plugged in. See you on the other side. Right, we're all charged up. We're at 84%. Says we're going to get to our next stop with about 16%. Cost for this trip is going to be a little under 18 bucks. So let's get unplugged and let's get down the road. Okay, we have a bit of a change of plans. After leaving Mitchell, we have a significant headwind and our energy consumption is significantly higher than it was before we got to Mitchell. Cars saying we have a bit of a headwind. We've dropped back to the speed limit, which is 80 miles an hour. I know that still takes a lot of energy, but the car should calculate for that. When we left Mitchell, it said we are going to get to our destination with 15%. It very quickly dropped. I think I saw it get as low as 5 to 6. That's a little below our comfort zone. There is another supercharger in Oklahoma, South Dakota. So we either got to charge longer at our next stop at Murdo, or we charge some here. So I think it's probably best that we split the difference, charge some here, and then before making it down the road a little bit further. So it just gives us a little bit of buffer, I guess. This being our first time on this particular road, it's probably safer to do that. So we'll check in at our next stop, which is in about 35 minutes. In Oklahoma, I think that's how it's called, South Dakota. A little bit of an unplanned stop. We got here with 42%, I think, and it's only about 70 miles, but we were well over 300, 350, 380. I don't remember exactly what it was, and it was quite high, and we lost a few percentage. So it's probably good that we stopped here. It's definitely not part of the plan. It's probably going to slow us down a little bit, but I'm hoping that whatever we put in the battery here, we don't have to put in the battery at Murdo, assuming we don't lose any more. Although as I stand here, I can tell that there is a significant wind in my back, which is the direction we're going, unfortunately. So we're plugged in. We're going to be here for probably 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll get down on the road. Okay, I think we got definitely have enough charge, 33% at our next destination, and it's only 70 miles away. Plenty of buffer. 67% left to go, just to kind of show you where we are headed. We still have about twice that distance. We're going to head over to Murdo, and then we have to then go down to our hotel, which is actually right in the Badlands National Park. And then tomorrow morning we're going to go up to Wall. Now the reason why I have Wall plugged in here today is because there's no charger where we're staying. So when we're charging up at Murdo, we want to make sure that the nav knows that we're going here and that we're not going to charge until we get here. And it gives you a good idea of how much you need to charge when you get to that final destination. And it's going to be a little bit colder, so even though we turn off Sentry mode to conserve power overnight, you're going to have less range in the morning. Plus we're going to do a little driving up through here, through the park. So we'll get into that planning when we get over to Murdo in about an hour, but for now we're going to get unplugged. Okay, now we are finally in Murdo, South Dakota. We got here 70 miles on this leg, 367 watt hours per mile. Still pretty high. There is a bit of a headwind, although it seems pretty calm here. We're going to get plugged in. It shouldn't be very long. This is going to be our last charge for the night. We're going to check in on our strategy on how long we need to charge, because it's going to sit without a charge and we have to get to the next supercharger after the morning. So let's get plugged in first. Here's what we're looking at. We have time to charge here, and it says that we're going to get to our lodge here with 2%. Well, we don't want that because we're not going to be able to charge when we get there, so we're going to travel all the way here. There is a supercharger, the next supercharger that we're going to be taking for the day, which is down here at Wall, and that's why you always want to plug into your next destination where there's a charge, so you know how long is it going to take to get there. So right now it's saying we have a negative 11%. So it is going to time this charge. It says we got 10 minutes to get us to the wall supercharger with a regular amount of charge. Now here's the kicker. It is going to be relatively cold overnight. It's already 57 degrees. When we wake up in the morning, if you turn off Sentry mode and just kind of leave everything be, it's not going to lose any charge, but your battery is going to be cold in the morning. So if it thinks that you can get to here with 5% less or 5% left, that is assuming a warm battery. In the morning, you are not going to have that range. So it's always better to add 10 or 15% on top of that. It kind of depends on how far you have to go to tell you what you need to do. So I'm going to charge until it says we can get to Wall, South Dakota here with probably 20 to 25% charge, just to be safe, because it's a little bit of an unknown what it's going to be like in the morning. So that's what you need to do, and that's what we're going to do. All right, we've been sitting here for about 15 minutes. We're up to 72%. It said that we've had more than enough time to charge, but again, we're waiting for that buffer. And given that we've had a headwind, I don't trust that I'm going to get to the lodge here with 42% like it said. It's likely going to be somewhere around 35, I'm guessing, so 7% lower. And then it says based on that, we're going to get to the wall supercharger at 29. I'm going to wait till we get to 30. That'll give us a bit of a buffer for overnight, for a cold soaked battery in the morning, and any sort of range loss we might have. So once we get to 30%, we will unplug this charge here. We're at about 12 bucks, 12 and change. So wrapping things up, last leg, about an hour till we get to the hotel. We'll call it a night. We made it to our destination for the night. We're actually in a cabin in the Badlands of South Dakota, and sometimes you do get lucky. The cabin allows you to park right up close, and there is a 110 volt outlet on the front porch, and I plug the car in. It's not a lot. It's going to give us about 4 miles of charge per hour, but what it's going to allow us to do is to keep Sentry mode on and keep our coolers plugged into the car, and keep everything cold. We don't have to haul everything back into the place. So that is a benefit. Even if we don't gain any charge, which we probably should, because these coolers don't draw hardly anything, we are going to get a good, decent amount of overnight charge. And there's this weird bird on the front porch I want to show you that's right by the outlet. And this whole time of me plugging in the car, this bird never moved. And believe me, this bird is alive and it's looking at you. It's crazy. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of our big 4,000-mile road trip. We are in the Badlands of South Dakota, and score one for our team, where we're able to plug into a 110 volt outlet. Overnight, we went from 42%. We are currently sitting at 56%. So not a ton, but it is just enough cushion to just allow us a little more time, a little more peace of mind to get to where we need to go, and a little less charging at our next destination so we can get down the road even quicker. So we're getting packed up. We're going to look around the Badlands for a little bit, and then we're going to make our way on our journey. We'll check in at the next stop. First charging stop of the day for day 2 of our big road trip. We are in Wall, South Dakota, home of Wall Drug. In fact, the supercharger is about a block away from Wall Drug. If you don't know what it is, look it up. Here's what it kind of looks like for today. We need to get to Billings, Montana by the end of the day, so it shouldn't be as big of a drive. And it's showing that we've got a couple of charging stops to go. But we're going to be sitting here for about 15 minutes, and then we'll get on down the road. Come to Wall Drug, make sure you get the free ice water. not that cold. Spent more time at Wall Drug than we expected. The place is a bit of a, I don't know, tourist trap. We're sitting here at 83%, clearly enough to get us down the road. In fact, we were able to skip a charger by sitting here longer, and we're going to make it to Spearfish. Still think that's South Dakota, and it is. And it says we're going to get there with 44%, which is super plenty, but we're going to have to stop there because it's still going to be a 25-minute charge before we get to Sheridan, Wyoming, and then from there it's on to Billings. So let's get unplugged and get down the road. We're sitting here about $14.50. Just touched down in Spearfish, South Dakota. This is our last stop before heading into Montana. 103 miles on that last leg, 315 watt hours per mile, which doesn't sound too bad. However, the beginning of it was absolutely horrible from an efficiency standpoint because the speed limit was 80. I was doing 85, and it was killing me in like the 380s, almost 400. So I backed down to the speed limit of 80, and that made actually a huge difference. So I think for this trip, we're going to have to keep it 80 and under. So anyway, we're going to get plugged in. It says we're going to be here for 25 minutes. We're going to grab some lunch. Said when we left, we were going to be here with 44%. We got here with 36%. So we did lose some. So I think we're going to probably overcharge a little bit more than it would normally tell us to. And but it gives us time to eat. So we'll check in when we're done charging. All right, we're all charged up way over 90%. Says that we didn't have quite enough to make it all the way to the Sheridan, Wyoming supercharger. So we are going to go to Gillette, Wyoming, and then charge for a little bit, and then go to Sheridan, and then off into Billings. So we're done. We're hitting the road. Made it to our next stop in Gillette, Wyoming. 93 miles, 321 watt hours per mile. Still a little high, keeping it at 80 or under. We are at a charging stop at a Hampton Inn. A little worse for the wear here. Nearby is a Subway and a bunch of other hotels and maybe some stuff across the street, but we're not here for any food. So we're here to charge up for a little while. To get us down the road to the next stop. All right, the nav is telling us we have enough to get to our charge. Definitely, even if we have some drop off due to inefficiency, 27% when we get to Sheridan. We're at 68%. Cost for this charge, a little over $7. So we're gonna get plugged in. Actually, we're gonna get unplugged, back down the road. Well, we just arrived at the supercharger in Sheridan, Wyoming. It is a V2 charger. There's only 4 of them, and for the first time on this trip, and really first time ever traveling in the Midwest, it's full. So this trip, 103 miles, 302 watt hours per mile, which was not bad. But we're gonna sit here a while, and I guess we're gonna have to wait for a spot because we don't have any other place to go. Got a slot. Had to wait about 10 minutes, pulled in. I was 4-4, only getting 75 kilowatts max. So we're gonna need to be here for an hour, which is not good. Fortunately, everybody left except the person next to me that I was sharing with. So I ended up unplugging and moving, and now I'm up to about 120, which is a lot better. So hopefully won't be sticking around here very long, and we're just gonna get down on the road. End of our second day. We are now in Billings. We did stop for some dinner in Billings before coming to charge, and in this leg, 148 miles, 312 watt hours per mile, which is not bad, given that we were driving 83 miles an hour on the interstate. So we're gonna get plugged in and we're gonna figure out how high we need to charge, because tomorrow we're going all the way to Spokane, Washington, and we're not exactly sure where our next stop is, so we're gonna plug it into the nav and figure that out. So let's first get plugged in. So we did a little bit digging for tomorrow, and it looks like we don't need a ton of charge to get us down the road, but we are likely going to have a cold battery when we get started. We had some time to kill, so we just sat and charged up to 90%, and by the time we get to the hotel it's going to be somewhere around 85. And then in order to prevent battery loss overnight, make sure you turn off Sentry mode if you're comfortable with that. I am in this particular case, and we're just gonna go in the morning, and we should get to our next stop with plenty of charge even if we have a cold battery. So we'll check in with you in the morning for the start of day 3. Good morning, everyone. It's the start of a new day. We had a good night's sleep. We got here at the hotel that does not have charging with 86%, turned off Sentry mode, and we are still at 86%. If you turn off Sentry mode and you don't check the app, you're gonna wake up in the morning with exactly the same charge that you had before. But beware, your battery is gonna be cold. So your first trip to your next destination, your efficiency is likely going to be terrible. Now, you could turn on the climate controls and warm up the battery, but without being plugged in, you're just burning energy, and I've yet to figure out which one's better. But in this case, if the distance that you're gonna have to go before you have to supercharge is more than a few miles, just get in and go and deal with it, but make sure you have a buffer to get you there. So let's check out what we're doing today. So we are in Billings, Montana, and we have to do about 575 miles today. We're going to head west. We're going to make a detour down to a falls picnic area here, but then generally we're just going to kind of make our way west all the way up into Spokane. Spokane, Washington is our goal. Spokane, Washington is our goal for the day, and this is our trip all the way out to Seattle. So we'll be getting into Seattle sometime on Monday. This trip is about 4,500 miles. We're doing a lot of the heavy lifting of this trip, just getting out to the west, but then we're going to meander around and then come back up through Canada and back and spend a lot more time. So the days will be a lot shorter. At least right now, it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 charging stops to get us to our final destination, and so we just got to get packed up here and hit the road. Made it to Big Timber, Montana this trip, 90 miles, 311 watt hours per mile. That was with an overnight stay. Let's just see what we have going on here. All right, here's our plan. We're in Big Timber. We want to go down here to a waterfall park area, and then basically it says we have to come back to where we are. Now, the nav is saying if we charge for 15 minutes, we can go to the falls and then go all the way back, and then all the way back over here to Bozeman with a 13%. I don't know that we want to stick around that long. Gonna use the restroom real quick, because we basically can just go to the falls and come back, and we're going to be within a couple of blocks. So we might as well just charge up, stay here for like 5 minutes, use the restroom, and then go, and then come back the same spot that we are right now, and then make sure we have plenty of charge to get to Bozeman. So I think that's what we're going to do. All right, in order to force it to do what I wanted to do, I went ahead and forced it to go back to Big Timber, where we are right now, after we go to the falls. And when I do that, it basically says we have enough to go now. We're going to get to the falls with 38%, and then back here to Big Timber with 34%, which is plenty. So I'm going to run in, use the restroom, and come back out and unplug, and we'll go. Just left the Natural Bridge Falls, which is about 30 miles southwest of Big Timber, Montana. And if you ever get a chance to get out here, I would highly recommend that you swing down here to the falls. The drive is absolutely stunning. The falls are very close to where you park. There's a place where you can, if you have accessibility issues, you can definitely see the falls, but I highly recommend trekking around the backside and then down to the water level below the falls. Very, very stunning. Highly recommended. Although, next stop here, we're heading back to Big Timber, Montana. It's saying that we don't have to charge, but we're going to stop and use the restroom, and because it's a which is fine, but if we're gonna use the restroom, we might as well plug in. So we'll check in next at Big Timber, Montana. We are all charged up to 82%. Just had a quick lunch here, so we charged longer than we needed to. So Bozeman is going to be, instead of a longer charge, it's going to be a really short charge. If I wanted to stick around a little bit longer, could probably bypass Bozeman, but we're only charging at 56%, so it's not the best use of our, only charging at 56 kilowatts, so it's not the best use of our time. So we're going to go ahead and get them plugged in. We'll check in at Bozeman, Montana. We just got to Bozeman, Montana. It was a bit of a nail biter. We're coming down through the mountains and we're encountering a decent amount of rain. I wouldn't say a ton of rain, but for whatever reason, the roads on the Montana mountain roads don't drain very well. So there was a lot of hydroplaning, a little bit of hydroplaning going on. And even on the opposite side of the divided highway, there was enough water on the road that it was splashing gobs of water over onto our side. So that last leg was only 64 miles, but we were at 384 watt hours per mile. And we were driving slow. And according to the computer, it's because we also had a huge headwind during the storm too. So hopefully things will have died down while we're sitting here charging. We actually overcharged. Today's Father's Day. Got a couple calls from my kids. So we sat here and charged while we're waiting. We are almost at 90%. Don't need 90% to get down to our next stop, which is in Butte, Montana. So we're gonna unplug and do that now. Just got to Butte. Since the last charge, it was 82 miles, 326 watt hours per mile. We're going through the mountains, so it's kind of what we've been getting here. Got here with 48% charge. Actually doesn't say we have to charge for any minutes, but it was going to bypass us and get us to Missoula with 4%. Things have been a little unpredictable, so now it's saying 10%, so we're going to charge here for just a few minutes and then we'll get on the road. Just got to Missoula, Montana. This leg of the trip, 127 miles, 272 watt hours per mile. Lowest usage of power on this whole trip, and it was all mostly in the mountains. Not exactly sure why. This car is just a beast in the mountains and really performs well in the mountains. We're all plugged in. We're going to be here about 15 more minutes, and we've got one more stop, probably two more stops before we get to our final destination in Spokane. So we'll check in with you when we get to Superior, Montana. Welcome to Superior, Montana. Short leg, 55 miles, about 320 watt hours per mile. Pretty typical. It's behind a Conoco, kind of in a really small town. This has got to get us some power so we can make it to our near final destination in Spokane. Last charging stop for the night. We are in Lake Liberty, Washington. It's actually a Tesla dealership, and it is our first V3 charger in a very long time. So we're going to go ahead and get plugged in. This trip, 126 miles, 276 watt hours consumed. Considerably higher at the beginning. We were going up in the mountains. It all got it back when we came down. So let's get plugged in, and then the next stop is going to be the hotel where we hope to have charging, but it's not guaranteed. Landed in Spokane, Washington at a DoubleTree Hotel downtown. In this large parking garage, there is one and one only electric charger, and it is a wall connector behind my back, and we got it. We have 40 amps of power that are going to charge our car overnight, and we're going to wake up in the morning with a full tank of gas, so to say, so we can get down the road without the need to charge first thing in the morning. So it's going to save us a lot of time in the morning. Super stoked. Good morning, everyone. Checking in on the road. Just left Spokane, Washington. We are headed towards Seattle today, which is going to be our mostly furthest west destination from Iowa. We are 1,700 miles into this journey. We're going to be about 2,000 when we get there. Last night we had a charger available to us at the hotel. It was a wall connector, so we had a 40 amp service, so we were able to get up to 90% overnight. And then we woke up this morning, I kicked it up to 100%, turned on the climate controls to preheat the battery, and we are going. It says that we have about 190 miles to Leavenworth, Washington, and it says that we can get there on one charge and get there with currently 15%. So that's about 3 hours of driving. That's one of the longer legs that I've ever done in this car, even though it should definitely be able to handle it. But if things get a little weird or the wind gets bad or whatever happens, there's 4 other chargers between here and there that we can check in on, and the car will let us know if it's a problem. So we'll check in when we get to our next stop, wherever that is. Hopefully it is Leavenworth, Washington. Quick update from the road. We are on our way to Leavenworth, Washington, which is 200 miles away. When we left, it said we were going to be about 15% when we get there. Wind is a little bit stronger than I think it anticipated. It had kind of dropped down to 6%. Probably could make it, but we're not in a big hurry, and there's one literally off the road here about 50 miles from our location, so we're going to drop into Quincy, Washington. All right, check in from Quincy, Washington. We did stop. That last leg ended up being 132 miles, 320 watt hours per mile, which is higher than our average on this whole trip, which we've done almost 1,900 miles, averaging 306 watt hours per mile. Could definitely tell that the wind was a little worse on that leg. And like I said, we got a little bit of time today, so it was better to play it safe and just plug in here. We're here at a Shell station, kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it is a V3 charger, so that's really good. So we're only going to be here less than 10 minutes, and then we'll get going again. That's the power of a V3 charger. We are headed out. We are here just in time to go to the restroom and back. Now we're going to be at our destination with 34%, so doesn't take that long to charge up a Tesla sometimes. All right, so we arrived in Leavenworth, Washington. This leg, only 67 miles, 265 watt hours per mile, which is really good, although we were coming downhill out of the mountains for a lot of that, but that's what you get when you go downhill. Arrived at 32%. It says we only need to be here for 10 minutes, but we're going to be sticking around this town for a little while and walking around, so we're going to definitely overcharge, which is likely going to change the rest of our charging stops for the day. So we're just going to settle in for the day and see where we're at when we get done. So I decided we're going to end the video right here. This is our trek out west to Seattle from Iowa. It ended up being about 2,100 miles, and the overall journey ended up being over 6,000 miles. But we're only in day 3 of our 20-day trip, and let me tell you, I am back, and it was a heck of a ride. So what are my overall thoughts on this leg of the trip? Well, South Dakota, definitely doable. Badlands, awesome. Montana was an interesting state. There wasn't a lot of EVs in that state, but there also weren't a lot of EV chargers either. All of them were V2s or sub V2s, and there were only basically 4 at each stop, and they were crowded. I had to do more waiting in Montana to get a charger than anywhere else that I've traveled. Now, granted, I generally travel in the Midwest. I know a lot of new V3 chargers are coming to Montana, so Tesla's finally showing Montana some love, and it really, truly needs it. But other than that, this trip was spectacular. This leg was 100% doable, and we did basically a third of the trip in the first 3 days just getting out there. We got more videos coming out. I got a video that shows us our trip up to Mount Rainier and back, and that's a little interesting because there's no charging along the way, and you got to go up the mountain and you got to come back down. I'll show you what that's all about. And then I'm going to take you on our trip from Vancouver all the way up into Jasper National Park in Alberta, Canada, and down through Saskatchewan and back home into Iowa to finish out our 6,000-mile, 20-day road trip. If you like this video, I'd appreciate you hitting a like. If you want to stick around and see the rest of the videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that bell icon to get notified when they come out. If you're looking to pick up a Tesla of your own, and this is an awesome road tripping vehicle, and I guarantee you if you get a Tesla, you will do more traveling in your electric car than you ever have in your entire life because it is such an awesome experience. But if you're going to get one, make sure you use a referral link to save you some money on your purchase, up to $1,000 off your purchase. Use any referral link, but if you want to use mine, that would be great. There's a link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.